my channel, I have presented you with biographies of several most notable figures of Russian Christianity, both famous and in a way infamous. Now it's time to bridge a serious gap and talk about the fundamental figure of the 20th century in the Russian Orthodox Church, who, however, lived his whole life outside of Russia, but still is considered one of the most influential spiritual fathers of Russian Orthodox Christianity. I am, of course, talking about Antony Sourozhsky, or formerly Metropolitan Antonius of Sourozh, who served as the head Russian Orthodox bishop in the United Kingdom and Ireland for more than 40 years. Andrei Blum was born in 1914 in Switzerland, in a family of a Russian diplomat. After the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, his family did not return to Russia and became immigrants. After living for some time in Persia and moving around Europe, they settled in Paris, where Andrei grew up. The Russian language was carefully preserved in the family, and despite fluency in French, German, and eventually English, Metropolitan Antony spoke almost perfect Russian without a trace of accent until his last days. Although the Blums were Orthodox, young Andrei had no interest in religion whatsoever. He would later reminisce that at the age of 14 he accidentally attended a meeting with no other than Father Sergei Bulgakov, a renowned Russian émigré philosopher and theologian. Back then, Andrei lived in the atmosphere of fierce rejection of the Soviet regime and hopes for eventual, maybe even militant, liberation of Russia. Father Sergei preached Christian love for enemies, and Andrei rushed home to read the Gospel and see for himself if that was what Christianity really teaches. After reading the Gospel, he decided to dedicate his life to God. He would later recall that his first idea was to go live in the wilderness, like the holy ascetics of the past. But he neither had the means to travel nor the opportunity to abandon his aging parents and grandmother. Eventually, he entered the Sorbonne to become a doctor. When the war broke out, he gave monastic vows in secret to be ordained later. At first, he served as an army surgeon. Then, after the occupation of France, he worked as a doctor in Paris. There, he joined La Résistance as a doctor who attended to the wounded members of the movement. In his ambulance cart, he also secretly transported weapons and members of the resistance. According to some sources, he nearly avoided arrest by the Gestapo at least once, and for his Scottish surname, Blum, he was suspected of being an English spy. After the war, he continued his medical practice until his ordination as a deacon and, less than a month later, as a priest. In 1949, hero priest Antony was sent to London to join the Fellowship of St. Alban and St. Sergius, an ecumenical organization which brought together Anglican and Russian Orthodox clergy and laymen to learn more about each other. Antony served in the Church of the Dormition of the Mother of God and All Saints, which would later become the cathedral of the Russian Orthodox bishop. The diplomatic activity of the Russian state in religious affairs eventually led to the transformation of the local community in London into a full eparchy headed by a bishop. Antony named the eparchy after St. Stephen of Sourozh, the modern-day town of Sudak in Crimea, and became its first bishop. The name of the eparchy was chosen to avoid confusion with the Anglican Bishop of London. By the end of Antony's tenure, the eparchy was still the smallest in the whole Russian Orthodox Church, with just 25 parishes and no monasteries. Eventually, both the eparchy in London and Bishop Antony played an important role in Soviet foreign policy. Most importantly, the eparchy was an alternative to the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia and competed for Russian émigré congregants in the heart of the Western world. Antony, being a European national, was free to travel around the world and represent the Russian Church in various international organizations and events, fluently speaking European languages. For more than 10 years, Antony was an official representative of the Patriarch in Western Europe. At the same time, Antony participated in the most important domestic events of the Church. After the death of Patriarch Alexei I, Antony participated in the council that elected Patriarch Pimen. Later on, he also went to the Council of 1990, which elected Alexei II. Initially, Metropolitan Antony was even proposed as one of the candidates, but didn't make it to the list because he didn't have a Soviet citizenship, which was formally required. He was the head of the committee that counted votes for the candidature of the new patriarch. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, people started leaving Russia in large numbers. Many Russians, for political, economic or other reasons, ended up in the United Kingdom. Sourozh Eparchy, which already served in 2 languages for Russians and English converts, faced a wave of new adherents. Eventually, it led to conflicts and even schisms. Enjoying much autonomy during Soviet times, the eparchy faced attempts of more tight control from Moscow. The head of the Department for Foreign Relations, Metropolitan and future Patriarch Kirill appointed a newly ordained Bishop Ilarion a vicar bishop, which means an assistant bishop without his own cathedra. Ilarion would later himself become the head of the department and would get involved in a series of scandals, some of which I talked about in one of my videos. Bishop Ilarion faced much hostility, especially from another bishop, an American-born Bishop Basil Osborne. Ilarion was seen as the man of Moscow, sent to establish control and division between Russians and English. After a series of mutual accusations between Ilarion, Basil and Antony, Ilarion asked the Patriarch to remove him from London and send him to another position. Another scandal also involved Bishop Basil. An American convert to Orthodox Christianity, he was invited and eventually ordained by Metropolitan Antony as a priest. After his wife died in 1991, he was tonsured as a monk and eventually ordained as a vicar bishop to Antony. In the 2000s, with the growth of Russian-speaking congregants and after the conflict with Ilarion, Basil was more and more inclined to leave the Russian Church for the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople. He even tried to persuade Metropolitan Antony to join Constantinople with the whole eparchy, but Antony categorically refused. Eventually, in 2006, already after the death of Metropolitan Antony, Bishop Basil asked the Patriarch to let him leave for the Patriarchate of Constantinople, but receiving no formal approval, he did it anyway. The parish that he served split into 2 parts, and the whole Sourozh eparchy was shaken with divisions and conflict. Eventually, the Russian Church recognized his transfer, but the schism in the eparchy was still going on for at least a year. In 2009, Bishop Basil retired, and a year later he requested Patriarch Bartholomew to release him of his clerical and monastic status so that he could marry. Apart from his clerical and diplomatic activities, Metropolitan Antony is widely known, especially in Russia, for his sermons and written works. Preaching in Russian and English, Metropolitan Antony actively used the growing influence of the media, radio and television, and was often invited to the BBC and to live events in Britain and in the Soviet Union. He is considered one of the most influential Russian Orthodox preachers of the 20th century. Antony held honorary doctorates from numerous religious and secular educational institutions and promoted Orthodox education. In 1999, he initiated the foundation of the Institute for Orthodox Christian Studies at Cambridge. At the eparchy, he opened a school for Russian emigre children to learn about Russian history, language and culture. Metropolitan Antony retired in 2003 due to ill health and died soon after at the age of 89. He is buried in Brompton Cemetery in London. His multilingual legacy lives on in numerous audio and video sermons, interviews and books. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all next time.